Dear daughter, I'm writing this as a diary entry. The urgency I feel is immense because one day you might find yourself in a situation that seems harmless, but reveals a lot about those around you. It was an ordinary night, the kind where conversation flows easily. The smell of coffee lingered in the air. He smiled and everything felt calm. He said something simple, something anyone should be able to accept. Not today. That was all. A light yet significant assertion. He fell silent. It wasn't a comfortable silence, but a void that weighed heavily, the kind of stillness that transforms the space around you. I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing the tension in the room. I looked at him, searching for a reaction, but he pulled away, a step back, though he was still right there. And then I realized that silence wasn't normal. It wasn't the maturity I expected. It was a test, a pattern I hadn't noticed before. That no was laden with hidden meanings, because when someone accepts a healthy boundary, they don't step back. They don't make the air feel heavy. It was then that I understood. It wasn't love. It was disguised control. Now I want you to be clear about this rule. Pay attention. If your no brings more tension than relief, that person does not respect you. The sign is the emotional distance that arises after your assertion. This kind of silence is not love. It's a disguised warning. If you feel pressured to justify a boundary, know that this is not normal. You should not have to provide lengthy explanations for your needs to be accepted. Remember this. My words have value, and I don't need to apologize for them. If you find yourself in front of someone who turns your truth into a burden, step away. True connection should not make you feel small. So, if you ever question the signs, remember, genuine respect creates space, while manipulation seeks to control. If your voice stirs fear instead of comfort, the relationship is unhealthy. If you remember one thing, remember this. Your boundaries are sacred, and when you honor them without hesitation, a new strength blossoms within you. Trust your intuition. Always choose yourself. That night, the heavy silence dragged on like a dark cloak. The feeling of being at the mercy of a gaze that had become a burden consumed me. The coffee cooled in its cup, a reminder of the unspoken words and the affection that was slipping away. I looked at that man, who once seemed so confident and kind, now transformed into a shadow of doubts. My thoughts began to spin, each one more confusing than the last. Unanswered questions echoed in my mind. What did I do wrong? Or, does he really care about me? That doubt dug into me like a cold knife, severing the connection I thought we had. And then, he spoke. But it wasn't a word of comfort, nor an apology. It was a phrase that sounded harmless but carried an immense weight. That's not how it works. Those 5 words reverberated through the space, making the air even denser. I didn't know whether I should justify myself or remain silent, whether I should defend myself or simply accept the criticism. And there I was, caught between the need to please and the desire to be heard. This was new for me. Love had always been a smooth dance, full of laughter and intimacy. But now, I was learning that not every dance is light. Some have hard steps and hurt the feet. What had once been a calmly enjoyable encounter transformed into a silent duel of wills and expectations. The vulnerability I carried was called disguised insecurity. I wasn't just losing the battle of that night. I was also fighting against a pattern that was beginning to reveal itself as a trap. As soon as he pulled away, my body tried to find a safe place to hide. The walls I had built so carefully began to crumble, exposing the fragility I was trying to conceal. The question was, why did I feel the need to fight for someone who wasn't fighting for me? The answer was perplexing and painful. That night was not an anomaly. It was a portrait of a dynamic that had slowly grown. It had kept me captive in a vicious cycle of approval and disillusionment. It was common to see the sparkle in someone's eyes when things were going well, but the darkness in the absence of that was no longer something I could ignore. Every silence, every step back when I asserted my no, were signs that I was dealing with a pattern of control that had no place in a healthy relationship. A wave of anger began to rise within me. It was not just against him. It was also against myself for allowing this to happen. I remembered past moments where small silences piled up, where my wishes were pushed aside in favor of complacency. Every time I gave in, I became smaller. And it was in that moment of clarity that I realized the presence of a new angle in my life. The discomfort turned into determination. I didn't want to continue in this spiral. I decided it was time to transform this whirlwind of emotions into action. If my feelings were being ignored, I needed to reclaim my voice. So, from that moment on, I promised myself that whenever I felt that pressure again, I would say, "This isn't working for me." The words that had once been trapped in my throat now flowed with strength and conviction. An inner power began to emerge, a recognition that I was not small. I didn't need to fight against a shadow. I could choose the light that illuminated my path. The idea that I was worthy of respect, love, and safety took shape. Over time, that relationship would become a lesson, a reflection of what I truly desired. Step by step, I made it clear that I would not accept less than I deserved. Every time I asserted my position, something within me grew stronger. It wasn't just about rejecting what no longer served me. It was about accepting what I truly deserved. Then, on a quiet night, after many conversations and reflections, I found myself finally ready to break free. The weight of silence became light, and the aroma of hot coffee no longer symbolized a confrontation, but a rebirth. Recognizing the importance of my own emotional space gave me the courage to walk away from a situation that did not respect me. By choosing myself, I opened the doors to true love, a love that respects boundaries, that embraces no as a fundamental part of the relationship, a love that doesn't use silence as a weapon, but allows words to be shared safely. I learned that when you put yourself first, the path becomes clear, and that clarity is what brings you closer to the relationships that truly matter. The decision to walk away was harder than I expected. It wasn't just a goodbye to a relationship, but a break from a part of myself that had shaped itself to the desires of another. With every step I took away, I felt as if I was leaving behind an old cocoon that no longer served me. Fear mingled with freedom. Uncertainty danced alongside hope. There were days when doubt resurfaced, like shadows amidst the sunlight. I questioned whether I was making the right choice, if I truly deserved something better, or if, in fact, I was being ungrateful for leaving something that, at times, seemed promising. These questions echoed remnants of a love that no longer existed, and I fought against the fog of memories trying to pull me back. One day, while walking in a park, I noticed a group of children playing. They ran and laughed, carefree and without thought to the consequences of their desires. It was in that moment that I understood. The freedom I sought was not just about distancing myself from something toxic, but about embracing the spontaneity of life again. It was about allowing my voice, forgotten and practiced, to now resonate with strength. I decided to sit on a bench beneath a towering tree. I looked up at the blue, clear, and vast sky, and I made a promise to myself. I didn't want to be a hostage to heavy silences or to expectations that weren't mine. From that moment on, I would begin to cultivate a new kind of love, a love that required respect, a love that celebrated my essence without needing to prove anything to anyone. As the weeks passed, I started to explore neglected interests. I picked up painting again, something I had always loved, but that had been suffocated by a routine that prioritized the comfort of others. The colors once again filled my emotional palette. Every stroke I made on the canvas was like a declaration of independence, a way to claim my space in the world. In that creative freedom, I rediscovered parts of myself I didn't know still existed. Conversations with friends became a foundation. We shared stories of relationships that had marked our lives. Amidst laughter and tears, we understood that many of us had faced oppressive silences, and that, despite the scars, each of us was learning to rise again. The empathy that emerged in that safe space was a powerful reminder that we were not alone. On quiet nights, as I gazed at the stars, I realized there was a new brightness within me, a light that didn't depend on someone else's validation to shine. I began to understand that true love is not a burden. It is a refuge, a place where you can be who you really are, where your vulnerabilities are embraced and your strength celebrated. However, the ghosts of the past still haunted my dreams. Sometimes I would wake up at night, feeling as if I were back in that oppressive silence, my mind filled with unanswered questions. But instead of succumbing, I allowed myself to feel that pain. I looked into the eyes of who I once was, and instead of despair, I found compassion. It was a painful process, but a necessary one. I learned to look back and find gratitude, even for the difficult experiences. Every moment of hesitation, every tear shed, illuminated what I truly desired. This path was not linear. There were curves and detours, but each step was worth it. And so, one day, upon encountering an old friend in a cafe, I realized I no longer carried the weight of the past. Our eyes met, and instead of nostalgia, I found relief. We talked for a long time, and at the end of our meeting, he smiled and said, "You look different, lighter." That simple statement was like a validation that I was truly changing. I had found new ways to be with myself and to relate to the world. That night, when I got home, I looked in the mirror. I didn't just see a woman who had come out of a complicated relationship. I saw a warrior. I saw a woman who was finally ready to love herself. The inner battle had created space for authentic love. And now, my story was solely mine. If you ever find yourself trapped in silences that make no sense, remember, your journey is precious. Love begins within you. And when you allow yourself to be whole, without fear, the right doors will open. That's how you find true connections, relationships that respect your boundaries, and a love that blossoms without pressure. You deserve all of this, and more. When I looked at that woman in the mirror, I realized there was so much more to be discovered within me. The freedom I felt wasn't just about distancing myself from something that bound me, but about reclaiming parts of myself that had been silenced. I had been a shadow, a spectator of my own life. Now, I wanted to be the main character. It was curious how life unfolded after a decisive moment. The little things that once seemed insignificant now shone brightly. A vibrant sunset, the scent of fresh flowers, the spontaneous laughter of friends around me. Each experience became a new possibility. Every interaction, an opportunity for growth. One morning, while walking through a park, I saw a woman painting on an easel. The colors danced on the canvas, reflecting the joy and freedom I was finally feeling. As I approached, I asked if I could observe. She smiled, and instead of just showing me her work, she started to share her journey in art. I talked about my forgotten passion for painting. With curious eyes, she encouraged me to give it a try. I picked up a brush, and with hesitation, dipped it into the paints. The first strokes were timid, but soon I found my flow. The colors began to mix, creating unexpected shapes. There, I found pure joy, a connection to something greater. In that moment, I realized that each stroke represented a part of me that was being reborn. It was as if, for the first time, I was expressing what I truly felt. I was connecting with my inner self, and everything that had been stifled started to emerge. In the following days, I returned to the park whenever I could. Painting became a refuge, a place where I could distill emotions that had once been trapped. Each session turned into a form of therapy. I smiled while mixing the colors, and each finished piece was loaded with meaning. Conversations with that artist became frequent. She shared her struggles and insecurities, and how hard she fought to find her voice in the world. What started as a simple exchange of experiences transformed into a deep bond of friendship. With her, I learned the importance of having someone who not only listens, but also understands. The layers of oppressive silences began to crumble, and new stories started to take their place. And it was in this cycle of creation and friendship that I realized how vital it is to surround yourself with people who respect and celebrate your essence. They helped me see the value I had lost amidst control and manipulation. Every shared laugh, every tear shed, became a testament to the rebirth that was happening inside me, but not without challenges. There were days when the memories of that relationship haunted me, like invisible ghosts. Moments when I questioned whether I truly had the strength to go on, whether I was capable of embracing a healthy love. Sometimes, the shadow of that heavy silence would creep back in, but now I knew how to face it. Instead of hiding, I confronted it. I looked it square in the eye and slowly demystified those fears. One day, while talking about this with my artist friend, she said, "Fear is often a sign that we are about to grow." That statement stuck with me. Each time insecurity surfaced, I remembered the colors I had painted, the boundaries I had set, and the love I had begun to cultivate for myself. I decided to organize a small exhibition featuring my work. Taking a deep breath, I invited friends and family. When people arrived and viewed my pieces, the feeling was indescribable. Each gaze that took in my art was a recognition of all the struggles that had preceded this moment. It was a celebration of a new phase in my life. By the end of the night, as I watched the smiles and heard the warm comments, I realized that I hadn't just painted canvases. I had painted my story, a story of transformation, pain, and resilience, a narrative now being told through beauty and authenticity. And as I looked at those familiar faces, I understood that there was a community around me, ready to support and celebrate every step of this journey. The light emanating from each of them reflected the light I had found within myself, and thus, that journey became a continuous cycle of learning, love, and rediscovery.